All right, so get this. A Chinese company nobody's really heard of, DeepSeek, is suddenly making headlines in the AI world.
Yeah, it's not every day you see a company come out of nowhere and completely shake up an industry like this.
I mean, they've developed this chatbot that's supposedly blowing everyone's minds.
It's really causing a stir, especially with all the rumors swirling around how they managed to pull it off.
The Bloomberg technology transcript we have for this deep dive really digs into that.
Right, there's a lot of speculation about them getting a hold of some restricted NVIDIA chips, the kind that are specifically designed for the heavy lifting AI requires.
It's not just a tech marvel, though. This is causing ripples way beyond Silicon Valley.
Absolutely. We're talking major implications for companies like Apple, and the whole U.S.-China tech rivalry is heating up even more because of DeepSeek.
So let's dive into this, shall we? What's so groundbreaking about DeepSeek's chatbot? What makes it stand out from all the others out there?
The level of sophistication is what's really grabbing everyone's attention.
Sophistication.
Yeah, especially if the rumors are true about them using those NVIDIA chips to develop it.
Those chips are like the gold standard for AI, right?
Pretty much. They're designed for high-performance computing, the kind of processing power you need to build really complex AI models.
But those chips are under expert controls, aren't they?
Exactly. And that's why everyone's eyebrows are raised. If DeepSeek managed to get around those controls, it's a pretty big deal.
Huge deal, yeah. It makes you wonder just how effective those export controls really are.
It raises a lot of questions, for sure. Not just about how they got the chips, but about what they're capable of doing with them.
Okay, so we've got this incredibly advanced chatbot, potentially developed using restricted technology. And then, as if that wasn't enough, there's this whole other layer of concern.
Right, we can't forget about the security implications.
Yeah, the Bloomberg transcript mentioned the Pentagon finding DeepSeek's code on military networks.
It's a pretty alarming development. I mean, they had to scramble to get rid of it.
This isn't just some tech issue anymore. This is about national security.
It absolutely is. This whole incident shines a light on the anxieties surrounding AI in a globalized world.
Makes you think, doesn't it? If a company can potentially get into sensitive military networks, what else are they capable of accessing?
It really makes you question the security of data in general, both for governments and businesses.
Okay, so we've got a potential security threat with this super advanced AI, but then there's Apple, who are trying to, establish themselves in this AI world.
Right, they're trying to carve out their space.
How is DeepSeek's sudden rise affecting them?
Well, that's an interesting question. Gene Munster actually suggests that DeepSeek's emergence might be a good thing for Apple in the long run.
A good thing? Really? How so?
His argument is all about competition.
Competition. Okay,
right now, you've got companies like OpenAI who are the major players.
Yeah, they're kind of the big dogs in the AI yard.
Exactly. And they have a lot of control over AI tokens, which are basically pieces of code that developers need to use AI in their apps.
So they're kind of like the gatekeepers in a way?
You could say that.
Yeah.
But if DeepSeek starts offering those tokens at a lower price, it forces companies like OpenAI to compete.
I see. And if they have to compete, that means
lower prices for everyone. And that benefits any company that uses AI in their products, including Apple.
So it's kind of like DeepSeek is shaking things up and making the whole AI market more dynamic?
Exactly. It's forcing everyone to adapt and evolve.
But can Apple really just sit back and wait for this to all play out?
That's the million-dollar question.
I mean, their earnings report showed a dip in iPhone sales in China recently.
They did. And some analysts are saying that Apple Intelligence just isn't cutting it in the AI department.
What do they mean by that? What's Apple doing wrong?
Well, first, you've got the sales decline itself. Apple claims it's because of inventory shortages, but
there's always more to the story, isn't there?
There usually is. There's definitely some skepticism about that explanation. Some people think there are deeper issues at play in the Chinese market. Well, for one thing, they're facing some serious competition from other Chinese tech companies, not just DeepSeek. And many of those companies are making some impressive strides in AI.
So Apple needs to step up their game.
Yeah, if they want to stay competitive, they can't afford to fall behind in the AI race.
Munster mentioned something about investors giving Apple a grace period to catch up, but how long will that last? I mean, are they even on the right track with Apple Intelligence?
It seems like they're struggling to create an AI assistant that feels truly integrated and intuitive the way some other companies have managed to do.
So it's not just about having AI, it's about how you implement it, how seamlessly it fits into people's lives.
Exactly. And then on top of that, you got the Vision Pro, their big push into the VR market, which Hasn't exactly been the hit they were hoping for.
Yeah, that was supposed to be a game changer, wasn't it?
It was, but it seems like it's fallen a bit flat.
So we've got DeepSeek making waves, Apple trying to navigate these choppy waters, and then there's the bigger picture looming over all of this.
You're talking about the U.S.-China tech rivalry.
Yeah, this whole thing feels like a turning point in that rivalry.
DeepSeek is almost like a microcosm of the larger tensions playing out between the two countries.
How so?
It touches on all these anxieties about intellectual property theft, about national security, about the balance of power in the tech world shifting.
And this isn't just limited to AI, is it?
Not at all. We're seeing this play out in other areas like semiconductors, quantum computing, you name it.
Josh Wolf was pretty vocal in the Bloomberg transcript about his concerns over data security with Chinese AI. He even went so far as to use the term, get this, Cold War 2.0.
Yeah, his concerns definitely reflect a growing unease about the implications of Chinese AI development. It's not just about technological competition, it's about values, about how those values are embedded in the technology itself.
And how those values might clash with our own.
Yeah, exactly.
He also brought up this idea of a brain drain, pointing out that a lot of the top AI talent in the U.S. is actually from China.
That's a point that's often overlooked. We tend to think of the U.S. as the leader in tech innovation, but the reality is much more complex.
So what are the implications of that? I mean, for the U.S., for the future of AI?
Well, it raises some serious questions about the long-term sustainability of American dominance in the field. If we're not able to attract and retain the best minds, we risk falling behind.
It's not just about having the technology, it's about having the people who can push it forward.
Exactly. The talent pool is just as important as the technology itself.
Okay, so we've got security concerns, economic competition, this potential brain drain. Sounds like the stakes are pretty high.
They are. The future of AI is being shaped right now, and the decisions we make today will have a ripple effect for years to come.
So where do we go from here? What's the next step in our deep dive?
Now that we have a better understanding of the players in the landscape, I think it's time to explore some of the specific challenges and opportunities that this new AI-powered world presents.
Challenges and opportunities. Sounds intriguing. Let's do it. This whole situation with DeepSeek, it really makes you think about, the future of the tech industry.
It does, doesn't it? It's a stark reminder that things can change incredibly fast in this world.
I mean, a few years ago, who would have thought a company like this, practically out of nowhere, could challenge the big players like that?
Right. It really throws a wrench in the traditional narrative of how innovation happens.
And those NVIDIA chips, if they really did manage to bypass export controls, it's kind of unsettling.
It's a wake-up call for sure about the challenges of regulating emerging technologies in a globalized world.
We can't just focus on the tech itself, can we? We have to think about the bigger picture.
Absolutely. The geopolitical, ethical, all of that comes into play.
Wolf was especially concerned, as we heard in that Bloomberg transcript, about the difference in values between the U.S. and China when it comes to AI.
He's right to point that out. It's a crucial distinction.
I mean, their values shape how they develop and use AI, don't they?
They absolutely do. In the West, we tend to emphasize, individual rights and freedoms.
Right.
But in China, the focus is more on collective good and social harmony.
And that leads to very different applications of the technology.
Exactly. Think about China's social credit system, for example.
It's a perfect example. Using AI to track citizens' behavior, that would never fly here in the West.
Right. It highlights the potential for AI to be used for surveillance and control, something we're very sensitive to in democratic societies.
So how do we navigate that? How do you balance the potential benefits of AI with these very real concerns about how it could be misused?
It's a tough question. There are no easy answers.
Yeah.
But I think it starts with acknowledging the potential risks.
Okay.
And then having open and honest conversations about how to mitigate those risks.
So transparency is key.
Absolutely. Transparency and accountability. We need to understand how these systems are being designed, how they're being trained, who's controlling them.
Because this isn't just some theoretical debate anymore, is it? This is real. This is happening.
It's very real. The choices we make today will shape the future of AI for generations to come.
Speaking of choices, one thing Wolf talked about that I found really fascinating and a bit unsettling was this idea of the death of APIs.
Ah, yes. That's a bold prediction and one that's sparked a lot of debate.
Can you explain it for our listeners who might not be familiar with the term?
Sure. APIs, or application programming interfaces, are essentially the glue that holds the internet together.
Okay.
They allow different software applications to communicate with each other, share data, and work together.
Got it.
But Wolf's argument is that as AI becomes more sophisticated, it could potentially render APIs obsolete.
Obsolete. Really? How so?
Imagine an AI assistant that's so advanced, so intuitive, that it can understand your needs and connect you to the information and services you want without relying on traditional APIs.
So instead of having to navigate through a bunch of different apps and websites, your AI would just handle everything for you.
Exactly. It would become the ultimate intermediary, seamlessly connecting you to the digital world.
That sounds pretty amazing, actually, but also a little scary.
It is both, for sure. There are definitely potential downsides. We have to think about the implications for privacy, for security, for control.
I mean, if we're giving AI that much power over our digital lives, we need to be sure we can trust it.
Absolutely. And that means we need to be having these conversations about ethics, about bias, about transparency now before it's too late.
Before AI becomes so embedded in our lives that we can't control it anymore.
Precisely. We need to be proactive, not reactive.
Okay, so we've got these potential risks to consider. But what about the opportunities? Could this shift also create new possibilities?
Absolutely. If APIs become obsolete, it could lead to a wave of innovation as developers find new ways to leverage AI to create products and services.
It's almost like a whole new frontier opening up.
It is, and it's exciting to think about what might emerge from this.
So this is something our listeners should be paying attention to. This potential shift away from APIs, it could have a huge impact on the tech industry.
It could, and it's something we'll be watching closely.
Now, we've talked about the technology, the geopolitical tensions, the ethical concerns, but there's another layer to this whole AI revolution, isn't there?
You're talking about the cultural implications.
Exactly. This isn't just about chips and algorithms. It's about how AI is shaping the way we live, the way we think, the way we interact with the world.
It is, and that's what we'll be exploring next.
It's kind of wild when you think about how much AI is already woven into our everyday lives.
It is, isn't it? It's easy to forget sometimes because it's become so commonplace.
I mean, from the shows Netflix recommends to how Google Maps gets us from point A to point B, it's everywhere.
And that's only going to increase as AI technology keeps getting more advanced.
Wolf made that interesting point about potential cultural clashes, particularly between the US and China when it comes to AI.
Right, how those different cultural values get baked into the technology itself.
It makes you wonder what a globalized AI future really looks like, you know?
Yeah, will we all end up using AI that's aligned with our own cultures? Or will these technologies help to bridge those cultural divides?
It's almost like, will AI bring us together, or will it drive us further apart?
Big questions, for sure. And it's something we need to be thinking about now while these technologies are still developing.
Before those values become so hardwired into AI that it's too late to change course.
Exactly. We need to be proactive, not reactive.
Wolf painted a pretty bleak picture, though, about the potential for Chinese AI to be used for censorship and surveillance.
He did. It's definitely a valid concern, especially given China's track record with things like their social credit system.
Makes you wonder if we're headed towards some kind of dystopian future, you know?
It's a possibility, but I don't think it's inevitable. Ultimately, technology is a tool. It can be used for good or for bad.
So how do we make sure it's used for good? How do we steer AI development in a direction that benefits humanity?
That's the challenge, isn't it? I think it starts with education. The more people understand about AI, both its potential and its risks, the better decisions we can make as a society.
We need to be informed not just about the technology itself, but about the ethical and social implications.
Absolutely. And we need to be having open and honest conversations about these things. It can't just be left to tech companies and governments to decide.
It feels like this is where things get tricky, right? How do we ensure that AI development is guided by ethical principles, that it's aligned with human values?
Well, for one thing, we need to demand more transparency from those who are creating and using these technologies.
Okay.
We need to know how these systems are being trained, how they're making decisions, who's controlling them.
We also need to be aware of the potential for bias, right? If AI is trained on biased data, it's going to make biased decisions.
Exactly. We have to be vigilant about that. We need to make sure that AI is trained on diverse data sets, that it reflects the full spectrum of human experiences.
This whole conversation is making me realize that the future of AI isn't something that's just happening to us.
Right. It's something we're actively shaping.
Through the choices we make, the conversations we have, the demands we place on those who are developing these technologies.
Exactly. The future of AI is not preordained. It's something we're creating together, whether we realize it or not.
This has been quite a deep dive. We've explored DeepSeek's sudden rise, the challenges facing Apple, the tech rivalry between the US and China, and the broader implications of AI for society and culture.
A lot to unpack, for sure.
As we wrap things up here, what's the one key takeaway you'd like our listeners to leave with?
I'd say it's this. The future of AI is not something to be feared. It's something to be embraced, but with caution, with awareness, and with a commitment to shaping it in a way that benefits all of humanity.
So let's stay informed, let's stay engaged, and let's work together to ensure that AI is used for good.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
That's it for this deep dive. Thanks for listening, everyone.